exactly 9 months after the passing of François Mitterrand, they sent a SWAT team to the laboratory to raid the laboratory. They seized everything. They ransacked the place. They sprayed the laboratory with some chemicals. And they told my father, well, it's too late now to take you before the judge. You are going to wait here and we are going to take you tomorrow. And 2 months after that event, my father became extremely sick with acute myeloid leukemia.
Hey gang, today I am interviewing Sylvie Beljanski. She's a French lawyer by trade and a health advocate for holistic medicine. She's a public speaker, an author, entrepreneur, and she's the founder and vice president of the Beljanski Foundation, whose mission is to research natural approaches to cancer. She's also the CEO of Maison Beljanski, which is a dietary supplement company. Miss Beljanski is the award-winning author of Winning the War on Cancer, The Epic Journey Towards a Natural Cure. This book has helped propel her to be a sought-after speaker at conferences, and I met her at the Beljanski Foundation conference just a few months ago, and was honored to be a speaker there and to give a lecture and a workshop and learn more about the Beljanski Foundation and about her father, Dr. Mirko Beljanski. And so we're going to talk about his legacy, the work that he did. His story is a pretty wild one. Get ready. And then the ongoing work that Sylvie has continued. And it's a really pretty amazing thing. So Sylvie, great to see you again. How are you?
Great. Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here with you today, Chris.
Well, I'm excited to share your father's story and your story and the research you're doing. And so I guess let's start with your father's story.
Sure. My dad was Mirko Beljanski. Dr. Mirko Beljanski was a PhD in molecular biology. He was absolutely conventionally trained at the Sorbonne, and then he joined the Pasteur Institute in Paris, France. And then from there, he started to be intrigued by the impact on the environment on our DNA. Back in the 60s, 70s, all the scientists, the common view was that cancer could only result from a random mutation at the level of the DNA. And my father said, of course, there may be eventually a mutation, but something else also is happening. And maybe the mutation itself is induced by something else. And he had...
There has to be a cause to the mutation.
A cause, exactly. Yeah. And he zones that down to the impact on the environment on the DNA, which is slowly but surely the environmental toxins do affect our DNA and create some kind of distortion of the DNA, which goes from the nice double helix to something distorted with big loops. And he made the observation that whenever you look at a cancerous cell, there is always the same difference that is exhibited between a cancerous cell and a healthy cell. Whether you look at plant kingdom, animal kingdom, human kingdoms, there is always the same difference. The cancerous DNA presents big loops, and the hydrogen bonds supposed to keep the two strands of the DNA together are broken. So my father looked also to the environment to find compounds that would do something the opposite. First, he started by creating a test to measure the level of distortion induced by environmental toxins. And then when he was pleased with the way he was screening and measuring the distortion. He looked for compounds that would be able to do the opposite. And he found 2 natural plant extracts that are excellent at having some strong anti-cancer properties. And one is called Pao Pereira. It's coming from the Amazon rainforest. And the other one is called Rauwolfia vomitoria. And
let me pronounce those again for folks because I had never heard of these compounds, by the way. And so the first one is Pao Pereira.
Yes.
For my American friends. And the other one is Rauwolfia.
Vomitoria.
Which vomitoria does not sound good. Okay, please continue.
Yeah, actually, Rauwolfia vomitoria is quite well known by health professionals, even in the States, because back in the 60s, 70s, it was used to fight lower blood pressure. It turns out that there was a big controversy at the time because Rauwolfia vomitoria, the crude extract, is toxic and may induce cancer. So Rauwolfia vomitoria got at the time a very bad rap and stopped being used for lowering blood pressure. But if you remove the reserpine out of the Rauwolfia vomitoria extract, if you purify the extract from its reserpine content, then you have an extract which is not toxic and has a very strong anti-cancer properties. So what is beautiful about those 2 extracts is that they are selective in their action. They're kind of intelligent, smart molecules. They do recognize cancerous cells. They target them. They prevent them to duplicate. And they do not touch healthy cells. Actually, those 2 plant extracts are naturally fluorescent. So under the microscope, you can see wherever they are going. And you can see that the fluorescence remains outside the healthy cells, but is able to penetrate the cancerous cells and really destroy them, induce apoptosis. So now you stop thinking in terms of breast cancer, prostate cancer, ovarian cancer, brain cancer. You are thinking cancerous cells that are going to be recognized by those smart molecules or healthy cells. And if you have a molecule that doesn't touch the healthy cell, you have no toxicity. It's not going to, if you do not have any cancerous cell in your body, you are going to eliminate the product in a matter of hours without toxicity, without side effects. So my father started to publish back in now we are in the 80s, about those 2 molecules, and he got the interest of a lot of French doctors, of course.
How did he discover these 2 plant molecules? I mean, of all the plants that are out there, right, all the herbs.
He first started with the Rauwolfia vomitoria because there was this famous controversy. It was very commonly used for lowering blood pressure. So it was something people were speaking about, and was it inducing cancer or not? And so he tested that, and he saw the alkaloid responsible for the toxicity of the extract was reserpine. So he had the idea to remove the reserpine, but it's a very messy process, this purification, and you lose a lot of product during the purification process. So he looked at the active alkaloid of interest, which had the strong anti-cancer properties, called alstonine. And in the books, he looked for a molecule that would look the same and he could access without any purification process. And that's how he found flavopereirine, which is the active of Pao Pereira. And then he looked for Pao Pereira in the Amazon rainforest. So that's how he got involved with those 2 botanicals. Once he published, and my father was very charismatic, so he gave also a lot of lectures. He got the interest of a number of French doctors who, of course, were interested by having natural molecules, no toxicity, able to have a large spectrum of clients. And he got pretty famous with the French doctors, and they had a lot of French doctors using the products. And now we are in the early 90s, and the French president of the time, François Mitterrand, is diagnosed with advanced prostate cancer. It's the beginning of the second term. Terms were 7 years at the time in France. The disease of the president had been kept secret during the first term, but now we are at the beginning of the second term. He's very sick, and the diagnosis become public. So the official doctors comes to the French White House and says, well, the president is not going to stay around us for very long. We are going to put him on the morphine and see what happens, but you should prepare for early elections.
So he was essentially kind of put into a hospice situation?
Kind of.
Not quite, but...
Yeah. But the French president had a mistress. It's a French story, so what else to expect? And the mistress knew about one of those doctors who had very good results with prostate cancer by using my father's products. And that's how my father started to take the Beljanski products. And against all odds, he started to get better and better. And he finished his second term, and he only passed away several months later. But as the president was surviving and taking back, let's say, his power, a number of people were absolutely infuriated by the situation. I mean, there were all the pharmaceutical drugs. It was now becoming public that some natural plant extract dietary supplements were actually working. That was unacceptable. The French FDA was saying, that some unapproved product was doing better than drugs. That was unacceptable. And exactly 9 months after the passing of François Mitterrand, they sent a SWAT team to the laboratory to raid the laboratory. They seized everything, seized all the products, everything that was used for research. They ransacked the place, absolutely. And they came saying, well, there is plutonium somewhere. We have to spray the laboratory. They sprayed the laboratory with some chemicals. And they told my father, well, it's too late now to take you before the judge. You are going to wait here, and we are going to take you tomorrow to see the judge. Just spend the night somewhere here. And 2 months after that event, my father became extremely sick with acute myeloid leukemia.
So a SWAT team raided his lab, took all of his research, ransacked his lab, sprayed some kind of chemical in the lab and made him stay there overnight.
Yeah.
And what was this chemical they were spraying? What was the excuse they used?
They said they have heard the rumor that there was some plutonium somewhere in the
Plutonium.
lab, which absolutely did not make sense. That was not at all the line of research of my father. But they spread. And as you said, when you were introducing me, I am a lawyer by trade, so I had access to the legal file, and there was nothing in the legal file about the spraying of the lab with any chemical. So I have visual witnesses of the spraying and absolutely nothing in the legal file.
And I'm sure your father told you they sprayed because he was there.
Absolutely. And he was never told exactly what was the name of the chemical.
Now, was he arrested?
He was arrested and he was put under house of arrest. So I immediately started to take care of his legal defense. The judge never cared about giving him his day in court. My father was able to survive for 2 years, never had a date for a trial, to an opportunity to clear his name. So one of the last things he asked me was to take the case to the European Court of Human Rights. And I have to say that French government was absolutely, they did not present anything for their defense. We won an unanimous decision almost without fight. They presented nothing. And that was kind of, consolation to win before the European Court of Human Rights. But it was nothing if my father's scientific legacy was not actually confirmed. And that's why I started the Beljanski Foundation here in New York City, because I was in New York City, first working as a legal foreign assistant, and also because America is still the best, one of the best places when you can have a kind of freedom for access of health products compared to Europe.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought that up, because the freedoms in America seem to be eroding. They seem to be slipping away, but it is worse in other countries. Some countries are better. Mexico is a lot more freedom in Mexico in terms of health and wellness and medical freedom. But yeah, in Europe, it's gotten very strict. There's a stranglehold on supplements and natural therapies, natural compounds. It's very difficult in some countries to get access to anything, any natural compounds, or to find a practitioner that can help you. And yeah, I know France is very difficult. England's very difficult. Germany, not as bad. Germany's a little better. And I want to make sure everybody understood. So your father was diagnosed with leukemia 2 months after this incident. And how long did he live?
Well, he was able to survive for 2 years, but his products for a long time were not available. They had seized everything. So I made also my duty to try to produce the products as quickly as possible to send him. But it took me really, really several months, and I was not able, unfortunately, to save my father. But that's how I started to make products. And then I realized that having products was one thing, but really in order to salvage my father's legacy, I needed to carry on with the research and get confirmation that those molecules that nobody could pronounce were of some validity. No, because if you have some products and for just some foreign research and nobody has ever heard of those molecules, they say, okay, maybe, but I'll pass. And I was very lucky. What happened is that I invited all the French doctors who had been working with my father, was able to get a handful of American doctors, including Dr. Michael Schachter, who is a veteran of at the forefront of integrative medicine, of the history of integrative medicine in the US. And he came to my little conference and he realized by listening to these French colleagues how different and valuable this could be. So he had a case of pancreatic cancer, which the poor guy, the poor patient, was very advanced. He felt he had not much he could offer to him anyway. So he said, let's give it a try to those French molecules. And much to the surprise of Dr. Schachter, the patient started to get better and better from his advanced pancreatic cancer. So Michael Schachter started to give the products to more patients. And after a few months, he told me, I think I have enough good cases at this point to be able to write a little paper. So I was delighted, of course. And when the paper came out, I was so excited. The first American paper, I gave a copy to everybody I knew. I mean, everybody, including my banker. And it turned out that my banker was a patient of Dr. Aaron Katz, who was at the time the head of holistic urology at Columbia University. And one day, Dr. Katz calls me and says, well, it looks like this, what you have is interesting. Would you come here to Columbia and tell me more about that? And then when I came, I said, well, he said, maybe we could do some little research. What about doing some research at Columbia University? Because I cannot give something to my patients unless it has been tested at home. Not invented home is something really important in science. So I said, okay, of course, let's try. It felt like, a little let down to go back to the mice after having treated the president, but it is what it is. And we had the first research paper on prostate cancer at Columbia University with those two compounds, Pao Pereira and then Rauwolfia vomitoria. And then we were able to expand very methodologically to, precancerous cells, advanced prostate cancer cells that do not respond to hormonal treatment anymore. And Dr. Katz himself started to speak about those compounds at one conference. And then I was seated next to Dr. Jane Driscoll from Kansas University Medical Center, who says, hey, this is your molecule that he's speaking about you. That sounds great. Do you have something similar for women? And I said, yes, of course, the same thing, because it's not organ or specific or sex specific. It recognizes cancerous cells wherever they are located. And that's how we started to work on ovarian cancer with Kansas University Medical Center, and also pancreatic cancer. And with those two cancers, we also were able to confirm the synergy of action with chemotherapies, which is very important, because when people are followed with this kind of cancer, they are in the hospital, they are told to take chemotherapy, and they don't want to have to choose. They want to have products that works together, maybe add to the chemotherapy without adding any toxicity, but add to the benefits and to the results. And we were able to evidence that, and all the publications now are published. They are all available on the website of the foundation, beljanski.org. And that's what we are doing. I mean, funding research and sharing the results of the research on the website of the foundation.
So you funded a number of studies, and this research funding is ongoing. And currently, the target is breast cancer stem cells, correct?
Yes, because cancer stem cells is kind of the next frontier. As I told you, we have done all the stages of cancer, from precancerous, cancerous, advanced cancer. We really wondering if those little marvels of molecules would be able to also address cancer stem cells. Cancer stem cells are those indifferentiated cells within the tumor which are resistant to chemotherapy. And so they resist. The oncologist says, oh, you are doing well, the tumor is shrinking, but actually the youngest, the most aggressive are still there, and they are able to stay dormant for a long time, but eventually they may wake up and create a new tumor, and that's called metastasis. As long as you have not destroyed the cancer stem cells, you may have developed metastasis one day or another. And that's why it is so important to address them. And I think everybody who receives a diagnosis of cancer should address cancer stem cells without waiting to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds of chemotherapy, because those cancer stem cells will not be destroyed by chemotherapy or radiotherapy. So we were very eager to see if we could achieve something. We had some preliminary research done at Kansas University on pancreatic and ovarian cancer stem cells. And yes, it worked. I mean, we were able to destroy significantly those cancer stem cells. So
it's very important, and I want to chime in here because the paradox of chemotherapy and radiation treatments is that they will often shrink tumors, but in many cases those treatments do not kill the cancer stem cells, as you said, and the cancer stem cells are the instigators of the tumor and of more tumors in your body. And when they spread into other organs and tissues, that's called metastasis. And if you don't target and kill the cancer stem cells or trigger mechanisms by which they convert back to normal cells and die, through apoptosis or other mechanisms, then you still have a cancer problem. And that's why we see cancer recurring over and over again after treatments, because the treatments did not kill the cancer stem cells. Now, there are some well-known, in fact, I shared this on social media, the top 5 natural compounds known to be cancer stem cell killers, besides what you're talking about, because the research, what you're doing is kind of relatively new research and not as well known. But just for my audience to understand, the top 5 you should be eating every day from food is sulforaphane from cruciferous vegetables, genistein from soy, resveratrol, which you really need to get from a supplement because you can't drink enough wine to get a meaningful amount.
Even if you're French.
Yeah. You need you have to drink like 10 or 15 bottles a day. It's too much. Resveratrol, curcumin, and oh gosh, there's the 5th one and I'm forgetting what it is now. But anyway, so these compounds do exist in food and in nature. And so finding more natural compounds that are also targeting cancer stem cells is amazing. That's why I'm excited about this research, because the more anti-cancer compounds that you can have circulating in your blood, in your body, that are arriving at your cells and triggering apoptosis and killing cancer cells, the better, especially when they're compounds that are not toxic to healthy cells.
Absolutely. So what I would like to say, and I fully agree with the importance of making the right choice when it comes to nutrition, and the fact that in nature there are absolutely, definitely other compounds that also have anti-cancer properties. But my father devoted these years of research to those 2 compounds because they are extremely strong effect. Extremely strong. So first, because it's an extract, so it's highly concentrated, and those molecules. I asked him why at the time. I said, "Why those 2?" He said, "Because they work much better than anything else he had ever seen."
Well, that's why I'm fascinated by them. And I remember the 5th one. It's EGCG from green tea.
Yes.
So those are the sort of the top 5 well-known anti-cancer or cancer stem cell targeting molecules from food. But yeah, now then there are many more. I mean, Allicin garlic is a big one too, and that's not even in that list. But so your father had determined that these were the most potent that he had seen in his research of looking at multiple compounds. Yeah. Yeah.
And he had developed his test, to screen for molecules which can induce cancer and molecules that would do the opposite, have an anti-cancer effects. And he really zeroed on those 2 compounds, Pao Pereira and Rauwolfia.
And he spent many years working on this, obviously decades, I'm assuming,
Absolutely.
In this research. And when was his lab rated? What year was that?
96.
1996.
October 5, 96, yeah.
Okay, so right now you are the Beljanski Foundation is continuing to fund more research
Yes.
with different types of cancer cells, and right now the focus is breast cancer stem
Breast
cells,
cancer stem cells, absolutely.
and using these
So,
compounds, the Rauwolfia and Pao Pereira, and
so
also the Ginko.
for the first time, so we are going to have you were mentioning the green tea extract. So, I mean, my father selected also 4 kind of green teas that he thought were most effective than others. So we have an extract of those 4 teas, plus Pao Pereira, plus Rauwolfia vomitoria, all that together. And we are going to test this unique combo on breast cancer stem cells, and Kansas University Medical Center has already agreed to conduct the research. So we are very, very excited with that.
You have a product that has the Rauwolfia, the Pao Pereira, and Ginko.
We do have that, absolutely.
Talk about
also.
Ginko.
So this Ginko is made of golden extract of Ginko. So it's quite different from the green extracts that you find easily on the market. And my father studied this golden Ginko extract. Golden just means that leaves are harvested in the fall when they become yellow. It's not a different tree, but the change of color is actually showing the change of chemistry of the leaves. So you get actually something else. It looks different. It is something different.
Let me interrupt you. We had a Ginko tree in my yard, and yeah, in the fall it turns this beautiful shade of yellow. And it's only for about 2 days, and then the leaves hit the ground.
Yes.
It does not stay yellow for long. And it's always like, oh, wow, like it just turned. And then 2 days later, boom, the whole tree will shed in just one day, just it drops all the leaves.
Yes. Yes.
So you got to be on top of it if you're going to harvest that yellow Ginko, because the window of opportunity is very short.
We are buying the leaves a year in advance, like like good wine. You have to make your reserve your wine a year before, and when you buy wholesale. And that's what we are doing with the leaves of Ginko. We are buying the entire supply a year before so they pick it on the trees as soon as it turns yellow, because indeed it doesn't last long. So these yellow leaves, the extract, my father saw that it had the ability to support the liver, regulate the enzymes of the liver, and prevent fibrosis, skin fibrosis, which can be induced by radiation. And we did some research recently with this plant extract, because we wanted to look more closely at which enzymes were actually regulated. And most importantly, if there was a regulation of the enzyme called angiogenin. Angiogenin is that enzyme that allows cancerous cell to create new blood vessels.
Angiogenesis for my American friends. That's what you're talking about.
Yes. So cancerous cells eat a lot. They need a lot of energy, and they need to create new blood vessels to bring them food. And they also use those blood vessels in order to spread some to other organs. So by inhibiting angiogenin, you are preventing this angiogenesis phenomenon. You are kind of starving cancerous cells, and you prevent them, you cut the road for them to spread. So it's a very double way to have an anti-cancer effect. And we do have this new publication, which is showing that the golden Ginko is doing exactly that.
It's an anti-angiogenic compound, which, as you said, prevents tumors from being able to grow new blood vessels so they can get bigger. And that's pretty important. There's a number of foods that do that. And who knew? I'm learning new things every day. So that's amazing about Ginko. So the research is ongoing. What else do you feel passionate about that people need to know about cancer that they don't know, or about research or natural compounds? What do you find yourself talking about a lot?
Well, I think it's important to know that people don't have to choose. They can combine. They don't have to fight their doctor if the doctor say, don't do this, don't do that. I mean, they have to understand that doctors sometimes are not versed into nutrition. Doctors are dealing with statistics. They are saying sometimes, don't take anything else because they don't want to mess with their statistics. They want to have pure results for the compounds they are supposed to study. A lot of doctors now belong actually to hospitals, and they want to measure the benefits or not so great benefits of some specific drug. And they need data. If you take something else on the side, you are messing up with their data. But do you want to be a data, or do you want to get better? I mean, you may have to make your own decision to that regard. And it can be, can think, well, doctor, I understand what you're saying, but it's my life and my choice. And the other thing I want to say, if the doctor seems a little bit open-minded, you can tell the doctor, I have seen online, the publication is out there, showing that there is actually synergy of action between those compounds and chemotherapy. So you can try to educate the doctor, open the doctor, and maybe, maybe the first or two patients is going to poo-poo them like, you don't know what you are saying. I'm the doctor. I'm the one with the white coat. But 4, 5, 10 patients who are going to say the same thing, maybe we'll go online and read the publication.
Some doctors are easier to work with than others, and sometimes it can be a fight. But, if your doctor does not cooperate with you and they're difficult, you need to find another doctor, because there are a lot of them out there. And sometimes you have to knock on multiple doors to find someone that is patient and understanding and really cares about you and is willing to work with you on your own terms. That's very important. And bringing them research. And I know there are studies on the Beljanski Foundation website, for example, on these compounds that could be printed off and taken to your doctor. You can show them, hey, there's this research on these compounds. I want to take these things. And so it does help to be informed, to have some ammunition with you when you have these conversations with your doctor, so they don't think you're just reading some, health myth or rumor, right, or quack idea on the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. On the website of the foundation, we are trying to put list the research by organ, so it's easier to find, just can download. And then it's, it's published in great papers, like, with everything is peer reviewed. It's very difficult to say, well, it's just hocus pocus. No, it's not.
I love that. I'm so glad we've met. And like I said at the beginning, it was a thrill to speak at your event. It was a wonderful event. I hope you do it again and continue to have those a conference, because I think the turnout was great and the speakers were phenomenal, and there's a lot of good education and inspiration and encouragement that happened over that weekend. And it was just wonderful to be a part of it and to get to know you better and learn about the Beljanski Foundation, because I had never heard of those two compounds. Just never heard of them until I came across your work. And obviously your work is continuing your father's work. And so, you know, like I said, folks, I'm learning new things every day. And, you know, there's so much out there. There's so many natural compounds that are out there that can help you. But you do have to take the time to read and research and learn and listen, right? And educate yourself, and then put those things into practice in your life, monitor your progress. And that way you can determine what's helping you or not.
Yeah, well, you know, maybe because it's, come from a family of scientists, I'm more into research and really marketing and things like that. So that's why the compounds do not have the public recognition that they deserve. But I think it's growing, and thanks to people like you, Chris, who come to the conference and see the value of this research, and then give me a chance to come to your podcast. So I'm very, very grateful for the invitation.
My pleasure. And my philosophy when I was sick was that I made a decision not to do chemotherapy after surgery. And I decided I'm going to do everything in my power to help myself heal. And I was willing to take anything, to try anything, as if there was any possible benefit and there was no risk of harm, and I could find it and afford it. Right? I would do it. Right? That was my criteria. It was like very simple. It's like, if it might help and it definitely won't hurt me, I'll swallow it, I'll snort it, you know, I'll inject it or whatever, you know. So I didn't really do any snorting. But yeah, so I just love that, again, this is just more tools in the arsenal that could really make a difference for someone. And I love that you shared that story from Dr. Michael Schechter, who I've met, really good guy, and his pancreatic cancer patient that had, I guess, a remarkable turnaround with those compounds.
Yeah. And I have to say that my father started that since the 80s. So there have been those compounds, even without very little marketing effort, have remained available for over 50 years now. And that's pretty, I think by itself, pretty remarkable.
Something else worth mentioning that I didn't earlier is that I know it's hard to believe that the government would persecute a person, a scientist who is doing research on a natural compound for cancer. It just seems so unbelievable. But there's a long history of persecution. Mirko Beljanski is just one of many, many, many doctors and scientists and researchers and practitioners who have been persecuted, shut down, arrested, so, you know, basically run out of the country for trying to help patients heal with holistic and natural methods.
And generally, they shut down everything when the person is still isolated. And they hope that everything is going to disappear. And they say, you know, it was never proven, because they kill the researcher or the doctor before it is, the research has a chance to spread and be retested by confirmed somewhere else. What happened with my father is that there was a second generation with me. And then in another country where they did not have the political stigma, because I came with the name Beljanski was absolutely unknown here. So there was no baggage. And this research got kind of second chance. But doesn't happen to everybody to have a son or a daughter who is a lawyer willing to start all over again in another country.
Well, I won't say his name because YouTube has started censoring this particular therapy, but there was a famous doctor in the United States whose first name is Max and his last name starts with G, who was persecuted and basically run out of the country, forced to relocate to Mexico. And when he died mysteriously, his daughter picked up the torch, picked up the mantle, and continued on and she died in her 90s, not that long ago. Charlotte. Yeah. I'll let you all figure out who I'm talking about, but Again, you can't even talk about that therapy on YouTube anymore. YouTube has determined that it is medical information to talk about that particular therapy, which is
and
a
it was
nutritional therapy.
It was diet.
It was dietary, nutrition therapy, juicing. There was nothing toxic about it. And by the way, the irony and the hypocrisy is drug companies can run ads on YouTube all day long, right? Pushing toxic drug compounds. There's no problem with them doing that. But if you talk about a therapy that's natural and non-toxic, hey, that's medical misinformation. So anyway, but this is, I'm so proud of you. I'm so impressed by you. I just get so excited knowing that you are doing what you're doing. The world wouldn't even know about these two compounds, or really even, maybe not even about Ginko either, the golden Ginko and its anti-cancer properties, the Pao Pereira and the Rauwolfia. Had you not continued your father's legacy, it probably just would have died with him.
Yeah, but I grew up seeing, surrounded by people that my parents were able to help. And I grew up seeing the difference those compounds could make. And I felt I had the obligation to carry on. I just could not say, never mind, it's like it never existed. Once you know that you can help, you have the duty of doing so.
I know the feeling. Well, thank you so much for your time, Sylvie Beljanski. I want to make sure people know how to connect with you and find out more about your research and about these wonderful natural compounds that target cancer stem cells. So where can they find you?
So Maison Beljanski is a company sponsoring the research by providing the products. So Maison, M-A-I-S-O-N, and then Beljanski, B-E-L-J-A-N-S-K-I. We are in New York City. And then for the research, it is the Beljanski Foundation on beljanski.org.
So it's maisonbeljanski.com and beljanskifoundation.org.
No, beljanski.org.
Just beljanski.org.
Yes, for the foundation.
Great. And by the way, I will link to these in the show notes, folks. So easy to find, click through. You don't have to try to remember how to spell everything. So, well, this is just wonderful. Again, thank you so much, Sylvie. I'm so impressed by you. I just love the work you're doing. It's a pleasure and an honor to know you and to share your father's story and your ongoing work with my audience. And so this has been really great.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Okay, everybody, thank you for watching. Please share this video with people you care about. Check out the Beljanski Foundation. There are 2 websites. You can learn more about their research. You can also get the compounds that they have been researching for decades in supplement form if you're interested in those. Please like this video, share it, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.